Viego to match up against this, but could take the Lee Sin for Jiejie. For now, though, looking towards that Senna that did them so much work in that game 1.
Yep, the Senna going to come on through for Viper here. And you'd anticipate a Tahm Kench alongside it. We did see a Senna and Tahm picked up separately earlier on today. Didn't really work out for the Tahm Kench. So it will just be locked in here for EDG anyway. So that's the bot lane duo sorted out. Now FPX have their pick of the litter when it comes to mid laners. They could go for a bot lane themselves if they want. Plenty of options available.
Yeah, so you can either invest heavily into your solo laners here, but they are going to pick up the Ezreal, something that does outrange the Senna Tahm Kench. And they're going to go for the Yuumi as well. Something we talked about a decent amount. You can't dive anymore, right? One of the biggest weaknesses that Yuumi has is you stack up a wave because it's hard to contest prior when she's just attached to you, and then you dive, and that can't be done very effectively. Although we did see Lwx and Hung do a level 2 dive in that previous game. But regardless, a super scale on bot lane that will permanently, well, not permanently in theory, because obviously Senna can stack up infinitely, but should outrange the enemy bot lane for 99% of the game.
Yeah. Nice advantage there coming on through as the Lissandra going to be banned away by the side of EDG. And obviously, you know, Lissandra, one of these picks that has done very well into the Ahri. Wouldn't be surprised to see some other mid lane bans, things that can get priority, things that can find a way to roam out of that mid lane. We'll see what's going to be banned though. As the Lee Sin taken off by FPX. That's the Viego gone as well. And once again, we see Jiejie kind of pushed on his champion pool.
Yeah, probably Talia would make sense for me from EDG. Could come out ban Azir off an option as well. Something that obviously we've seen ban in the second rotation a lot. They will ban that Talia. I don't know if FPX are really concerned about the Graves. It didn't seem like it was too problematic. So maybe you could put another ban towards Flandre if there's something you're concerned about him taking as a counter pick. Obviously, the Kale has already been denied, but GP is still open and available. And as much as they did lose that previous game, there was that fight where he did like 6 million damage with his barrels. So could be something they're concerned about. If there isn't anything they want to sort of deny Jiejie from, they are going to go for that Volibear. You highlighted, you know, definitely has more ganking prowess, and it's very evident they really want to thin down the tools Jiejie has in the early game. And he's going to go for the buy.
Oh, okay. Vi locked in for Jiejie. We wanted aggressive ganking. Well, Vi definitely brings that to the table. And it's so difficult to deal with the pick potential that Vi has, especially with an Ahri to follow up on it. This is going to be tough to deal with because, you know, it's kind of a similar thing to like a Camille, right? Where you can't escape once that ultimate is on. Vi will chase you to the ends of the earth and, you know, quite often builds a lot of damage as well. We'll have to wait and see what Jiejie has up his sleeves.
Yeah, so a lot of people will have seen this internationally. We saw Ona play this. A lot of people want to talk about that. And obviously, it was relevant in the early stage of the tournament. People even banned it later on. We'd also see this last split in the LPL. I believe it was Kanavi who brought it out in one game. And yes, against the likes of LeBlanc and Ezreal, is a champion that has point-and-click CC. The problem is, that can be good and bad. As you said, there's no way to stop yourself from being dragged along. And with their mobility, you can sometimes get dragged into a bad position. What is wild is xiaolaohu going for the Fiora, which obviously had a fantastic game previously on it, but this is blind.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. That's an interesting lock-in. As Flandre now gets to choose whatever he would like to go into that Fiora. I don't know if blind is necessarily the play, and Flandre goes for a Vladimir. Now, we've been talking about scaling. We've been talking about late-game picks. Vladimir is one of the scariest scaling picks in the entire game, and will be able to deny the all-in with his pool if he's able to just stay safe underneath that tower. I don't know. I'm really curious how this one goes. This is what I wanted, Orcs. These are the kinds of drafts I was looking for. I don't know who wins this one because we haven't seen enough for 12-10 just yet, but I'm excited to find out.
And I did just double check. It wasn't Kanavi who played the Vi last split. It was Karsa who played it up against
Actually,
VLG.
yeah, I remember the game, yeah.
But I have seen it, obviously, not too much. A bit more internationally when we saw it come out. But ultimately does have the early game presence we wanted. Vladimir is an interesting one. We saw that a lot during MSI as an answer to the Gwen specifically, as something that could similarly free scale into the matchup. Is a bit different into the Fiora. And also, this is something Flandre did bring out last split as well earlier on. So definitely something that he is comfortable bringing out. Ultimately, I feel like if either matchup gets ahead, like the Vladimir can be such an issue to deal with if he gets fed in team fights as well. And Fiora, I mean, we saw what Fiora can do in the previous game.
Yeah, we certainly did. Fiora, if you can get ahead, but Flandre has the quote-unquote counter pick. I don't know if it's necessarily a counter pick, but certainly a pick he's comfortable taking into the Fiora. Certainly has a lot of scaling. We'll see if it's going to work out for him, as the top lane has gone both ways and was very one-sided both times. I feel like the entire map was very one-sided both times. EDG with game number 1, FPX with game number 2. We'll see who takes game number 3. We're about ready to jump onto the Rift, though, and look at that. The win rates between Fiora and Vladimir, exactly 50%. You couldn't write this stuff. We're onto the Rift, and I cannot wait to see how game 3 goes down.
Yeah, and we're seeing the tech that was sort of coming out in MSI, the Ghost Ignite Ahri tech for Vladimir. As ultimately, you have the Ghost, which allows that chase down potential. You have the Ignite in the Ahri for lane pressure, but you don't have Flash available, which, you know, there's an aspect of that. There's a downside. You can't do those big charging up your E into Flash RQ combos, but definitely still poses a threat in the later side of the game. And can't be dove. I think that's a critical thing. You know, we didn't see that as much with MSI because that was pre-durability patch, but gotta be hard to set up any stack waves and dive a Vlad. And as much as Vlad has the pool, if you chunk him down, he is usually an easy dive target, but shouldn't expect that to come out here.
No, you wouldn't be expecting that for the time being. As Flandre, as you say. We'll see if the lack of Flash is going to bite him in the arse, but certainly Ghost in a team fight can be devastating when you can't escape from that Vladimir. Viper and Meiko, very aggressive positioning to start this lane off. Lwx kind of alone in this lane, and Meiko tries to find the all-in, but will just get jumped away from. But Viper does get 3 procs off the back of his W, I believe.
That is the one window you're going to get for Meiko to be able to land a W. As soon as Lwx hits 2, I don't think you should ever get a chance again, unless Lwx is like messing up or eating 3 Ws from Viper. So good opportunity to punish and take that Flash, being that early summoner. But ultimately, this should be a pretty safe lane on both counts just to scale up and be relevant later. Mid lane matchup is a more interesting one.
You said there was only one window. It's going to be another window there, as Meiko actually takes way more than half of his HP for his trouble. So I don't know how good of a window it was, but it was a window.
Yeah, and this is kind of the skill expression that you can have on a Yuumi, which is like the difference between just your sit on someone and do nothing Yuumi, and you're actively playing the game and doing things Yuumi. And Hung jumping outside to tank the W from Senna, then jumps back in onto Lwx. And sure, Lwx still gets rooted, but it gives him sort of, it means he's not taking that damage, gives him time to sort of move away and reposition.
And also the passive from Yuumi as well, giving you that shield. So it's important to tank some of that skill shot damage, use the shield effectively instead of just, as you say, sitting on the shoulder of Ezreal. So nicely done there by Hung. Good to see him playing well on that Yuumi, using the actual full toolkit here. But pressure coming out from Viper and Meiko, as you'd expect. They do, generally speaking, have the advantage. They've got a lot more upfront damage in the early stages.
Yeah, and especially if you can combo the CC, burn the Ignite, that's when it can be really threatening. But again, at this point, Lwx with the Arc and Shift should be pretty comfortable. Now, top lane, we're seeing Flandre having a pretty good time in this matchup. Remember, Ignite advantage means he has that all-in pressure. Does have xiaolaohu trapped under his turret for now. My big talking point I want to highlight is the mid lane matchup, though. When we first saw Ahri come into the LPL last split, Scout, I remember his series was one of the first that I saw, and he played both sides of the matchup, LeBlanc and Ahri into LeBlanc, and won both of them. So definitely, I feel like a lot of skill expression in this matchup, and I've seen it go both ways depending on the execution and also the players. Scout definitely proficient on both sides, and would expect him to give a fair bit of challenge to Care.
It's crazy to think about the fact that, you know, Ahri and LeBlanc coming into the meta, that was the start of this year. That does not feel that long ago, and we're already into Summer Split. This year of League of Legends is just flying by, at least for me. I don't know about anyone else, but Scout, as you say, doing really well in both sides of the matchup there in the mid lane. Flandre so far so good in the top sides. Minor TS lead for himself. His Jiejie just clearing away. Let's talk for a second about this Vi that we've got coming into the game as well, because, you know, Vi versus Wukong, it's not a matchup that we see often, but Jiejie actually going with the Conqueror. Quite often you see Hail of Blades on Vi and a lot of damage built. I'm not anticipating that, right? You'd expect Jiejie to be going for a bit more of a tanky build, maybe Divine Sunderer, that kind of thing. Maybe even a Gore Drinker, honestly, if he feels it needs to be that front line.
Yeah, I think Divine Sundra is usually a decent shout, and then you go for like more bulky items. After that, Dead Man's can be pretty good. Obviously, gives you that extra empowered auto, but also helps you get him ranged ult. Ultimately, like Wukong is so hard to pin down, and you can essentially just use your W to never really get hit by Vi Q, so it's quite hard to punish. I feel like the Vi, as much as we said it was good, he had like an active mid to pull out of his pocket. It's hard to find pressure in these lanes pre-6 because everyone is so mobile. And ultimately, Fiora also has a W that can obviously turn the CC around. And Vi's Q is very, very telegraphed. So unless you're predicting things, I feel like he shouldn't be able to find too much activity until he hits level 6. Unless we end up getting like a big clustered fight in a skirmish, maybe around a Herald. But to be honest, by Herald, he will level 6 anyway. So can look towards that. But Vi does have a decent amount of damage when you get up close to her. If she can lock you in place and just beat you down.
Yeah, and also, crucially, sets up for the rest of the team to do damage as well. Like, if Vi can shred your armor and then Senna can get a few hits on you, you're just going to get one shot. Because Senna, very regularly, you'd assume, will build the lethality build. So the less armor, the better, as far as Senna is concerned. So lots of opportunity there. I am curious to see how the rest of the EDG composition is going to function later on. Because when you think about this whole team holistically, like Vi, very single target. You've got Ahri as well, very single target. But then when you think of things like the Vladimir, not necessarily a pick champion, much more about the big 5v5 team fights. Do you feel like this composition is a little sort of going in multiple directions, or am I just reading it wrong?
I feel like the single target pick is definitely an element of it, but I feel like it's also the cleanup potential. Like one weird thing to think about is the fact Vlad has Ghost actually really contributes to his ability to like move the team and clean up, because Ghost has a reset mechanic. Like every time you get a takedown, you get that extended duration. So I imagine the team fights would play out if someone oversteps or someone like mispositions from the side of FPX. They'll pounce on them if it's with a charm or a vial. They'll take them down and they'll just like be chasing forwards, using the slows from things like Tahm and Senna, and just trying to pick up more and more kills and get some momentum on the back of that. Whereas for FPX, they have the side lane pressure from the Fiora. They also have the poke potential, not just from the Ezreal and the Yuumi, but also from the LeBlanc, who can be quite a potent threat at like laying down poke before fights over a wall and then putting EDG in a position where they can't even take the fight.
Yeah, we'll see if they're going to be able to find those threats and find that positioning to be able to exert their will onto the map. 5 minutes on the clock though, which means Drake is here and Jiejie immediately starting to get some deep vision. Won't be able to spot that ward though, and will start this Drake off. Can pull it out of the pit. You can see Scout moving over. Big pressure in the bottom side too, so I don't think even with vision here, I'm not sure this is something that FPX can contest, but maybe Clid could go for a steal here. Remember, Wukong with the changes can dash over the wall now with his W, but would be very risky to do so. Might end up costing his flash. He's not going to commit. He's not going to go for it yet.
Doesn't go for it, but Viper will move over, pick over the pair of souls that get dropped from it, and a good early start to get that dragon for EDG in case things do start going later. We've obviously seen souls come in quite a few times so far today. I believe we had the mountain soul in series 1 and then the ocean soul, but now
Meiko is very low on HP right now. Bit of healing coming on through. The heal as well. The summoner spell used by Viper to keep Meiko safe. Good attempt there as it was Clid sliding into that lane, and now Jiejie tries to find him in the river. It's going to be the honey fruit there to get Jiejie back up on HP. Meiko over the wall as Care jumps on it. Big damage from the distortion. The follow-up is there. Jiejie low on HP. Care flashing forwards, but Scout has arrived. Can they turn things around right here? EDG are damn tanky in this fight. Viper flashing away. Clid now going to be rooted up with the Yuumi on his shoulder, but Hung charmed means he can't jump onto his teammates for now. Viper has to back away. Scout is out of mana, but Meiko is just marching forward relentlessly and kicks FPX out of the jungle.
such a messy fight overall. I think the Yuumi for FPX allowed them to survive so much damage. Hung as well, tanking the charm, very risky, but ended up saving Clid in the end, who would have certainly gone down if that had connected. So a scrappy fight that goes back and forth, but ultimately just a 1-for-1 in the end. But so many summoners burn across the board.
Yeah, very messy. Advantage to FPX so far in this one as Clid. Almost getting caught out there, but I like the decision to just stay and juke with Jiejie there. Dodges a lot of skill shots.
Yeah, and it looked like, I felt here, Jiejie would just be dead. Didn't quite have the damage to finish him immediately. And then the root catches on to the LeBlanc. They're able to follow up. And here, the moment where Hung steps in front to block the charm, you have to think if Clid ate that, he would just go down.
Yeah, really nicely done by Hung. Blocks it. Obviously meant that he couldn't jump onto anyone's shoulders for a little bit, but the damage wasn't there from the rest of EDG to finish him off. So very nicely played. And it means that we are actually dead even on the board right now. The first kill of the game, or the first kill for EDG, went on to Viper, though, which is very positive for EDG. Obviously, you don't get to farm on Senna, so getting kills is very positive for that AD carry.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the fasting Senna. Any extra gold makes such a massive difference in terms of hitting your spikes, especially when you have things like the Unblocked Glaive, which are super cheap and really easy to pick up. It makes such a big difference as well. I talked a bit about how like there's the pick potential for EDG, how there's the poke potential for FPX. Vision disparity will make a huge difference. So the Unblocked Glaive on the Senna being able to dictate that battle for vision will make a massive difference.
Will is going to clear some vision away. 2 minutes until that next Drake comes up, but Herald is on the map. And Jiejie knows all about that. He's grabbed it already at this point. Flandre is consistently just pushing xiaolaohu underneath the tower. This is the issue. When you blind pick Fiora, you end up in a tough matchup. Scout dodging away from the chains by moving forward as Care cannot escape from this one. Oh, the charm is gorgeous. Very nicely done. Threads it through the minions. Clid, though, just turns it around and goes for basically a 2v1, finding himself a kill.
Just didn't quite have the damage to finish off the LeBlanc, despite the fact they connected with the ultimate, allowed the charm to come in. The passive coming in from the LeBlanc makes it really hard to finish off your target. And then they just didn't have any gas left in the tank. And the Wukong and these extended skirmishes can really flourish. We'll see some reprieve given over to xiaolaohu here, just going to help him out and shove in this wave. He hasn't been having a fun time this matchup, but I will say that the Fiora being able to farm up, as long as you're not falling too far behind, isn't a massive issue. It's not like the Gnar into Kale where you're just going to get completely eclipsed. I've got that replay coming in, so, you know, a lot of damage done to Care. The ult does come through, but then just don't quite have the damage. The invisibility comes out, and then with the knockup from Clid buying time, allows Care to reposition, and they just had nothing left.
Yeah, and that's Jiejie dying twice now so far this game. Not having a fun time with it on the buy, and you know, something that's meant to be extremely strong in the early stages, but so far not able to make that happen. And on the other side, Clid, one of the best junglers on the patch is this Wukong. He's managed to get that in his pocket, and he's managed to get 2 early kills. It's absolutely huge. And now Lwx denying a reset from EDG's bottom lane as well. And off the back of that, should be able to get 1 plate for himself, should be able to deny a lot of CS as well.
This just reminds me of like in spring when we'd have Jinxes just ulting off cooldown to stop resets, and it being the most annoying thing ever. Yeah, a great opportunity to stop the reset there. It doesn't have mana, so won't push in, but we'll be able to crush the wave. Meiko can pick it up, but obviously you're not getting the souls for Viper. He's just going to move out towards the mid lane.
Yep, so trying to retreat from that one. Blue buff in the pocket of Scout, so he can just spam those abilities to clear the wave. Care not able to get that buff himself. It looks like Clid went for that one. Oh, so clone at the last possible second right there. That was a little dicey for the side of Clid, but he'll be okay in the end. And man, what an annoying mid-jungle 2v2. Wukong and LeBlanc. Like, how do you ever hit the right target with the amount of clones that are going to be coming out in these fights?
I mean, it just feels like it's so hard. I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about with the Vi. Like, we saw that first gank with the ultimate not really work out. But before then, everyone feels really difficult to pin down on the side of FPX. I don't think there's a single person who you'd deem like an easy kill target. And maybe that was a thought process behind the Vi. So at level 6, you have that. But regardless, they will move up towards the top lane. xiaolaohu has to respect this, despite the fact we said, obviously, dives a bit harder. 3 members would certainly be enough. And they will take that tower with the Herald. So big influx of gold to those 3. And in return, a dragon is picked up by FPX. It will delay the dragon stacking, but a big cost to pay in return.
Certainly is. That's a lot of gold into the pocket of Flandre as well. He's over 1,000 gold up in that top side already. Fantastic start to the game for our EDG top laner. And we'll see what he can do, how he can convert that lead, right? Because Vladimir is one of these champions who, generally speaking, won't have that big of an impact in the early game and then comes online later on. Well, if you're having this kind of impact this early on, it's a very positive sign for what's to come in this game from Flandre, especially when his bottom lane also managed to get that early kill. Oh, Scout. Oh, no, Scout. He's been knocked up. He's been chased down through the jungle, but Clid can't quite find the second knock-up here and will be found out himself. Scout, turns out he was just baiting all along. He was completely fine.
so hard to pin down the Ahri as well. You know, they go for the CC chain, and it's the chain from Care that doesn't actually manage to connect. The ult plus flash from Scout creates enough of distance to break the tether. And then the end result is the Wukong goes down. Bit of a shutdown as well over the other side. So GG, happy with that one.
Yeah, it's going to be Meiko forced to use that Devour to keep Viper safe. Will just be support ult for support ult in the end. As the wave is going to be cleared away. Meiko just has insane amounts of sustain. It feels like both of these bottom lanes, unless you kill them in an all-in, you're just never going to find a kill.
And at this point in the game, Vladimir is kind of hitting a pretty solid spike. So level 9 is when you have your Q maxed, and it's the lowest cooldown you'll get from some points in it, which is really significant. You also, at level 10, you get all the nice cooldown reduction from Transcendence. So he's in a pretty strong spot to really start putting some pressure down on the xiaolaohu. But for now, Clid trying to make something happen here, but no ultimate. I don't think that's going to work.
No, and Meiko happy to be the one on the front line as well, because he can always just use that Abyssal Voyage to get himself to safety there. The Scout just continues to push his wave. Very slow and steady in game number 3 here, and you can understand why, right? Both of these teams want to start the split off strong, but also, remember, these guys played in playoffs. Game number 1 felt personal from FPX with that aggressive comp that they ran for themselves, but it did not work out. And now game number 3 feels like slowly but surely is leaning the way of EDG, but it's not that big of a lead just yet. I'm just a little concerned about the scaling elements in favor of EDG.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's the Fiora in the side lane. There's the Yuumi, who's obviously a really big issue. I feel like both teams are strong options in the late stages of the game. It just comes down to how they play around them, how they execute. Now, Herald is spawning soon, and Clid is fishing.
Knockup comes out from Clid. It's going to be answered by Jiejie, though, as Clid looks for a little bit more. Jiejie will fall in the end. True Shot Barrage comes on through, but Clid will die and hung. That is not where you want to be. A lonely cat in the jungle taken down by a fox. Gobbled alive. And now Meiko moving over to the mid lane as well. It's 2-1 for EDG. They want a little bit more as Care needs to be cautious. Oh, the charm comes through onto Lwx. Is the damage there to finish the kill? Walks away with his life. Dawning Shadow not available. And it will just be the 2 picks in favor of EDG.
Yeah, Senna ult not quite available to try and follow through on that. And ultimately, FPX end up losing out. Clid felt like he was so tanky diving in with the Yuumi to back him up, but when the Yuumi's cooldowns weren't available, just ends up getting picked off. And that's the problem if you're going in for those plays with the Yuumi attached, is you're not just committing your life, but also the life of your support as well. And they both end up going down. And now Herald going to be picked up by EDG, the second one for them. I expect this to be used mid lane to try and crack that mid tier 1, get some more pressure on the map.
And once again, we have to return to kind of the pros and cons for EDG, that when they are ahead coming out of the laning phase, that's usually when they do a good job of controlling the map and taking over the rest of the game. Feels like at the 15-minute mark here, they have a minor advantage. They have another Herald to work with. They got one of the early Drakes with the next one coming up in 50 seconds, and you can see the resets coming through from EDG's bottom lane. You know that they're going to want to contest that next Drake.
Now, though, just going to be trying to set up for it. I think the vision control around mid is something really big to highlight for EDG. Just the sheer number of wards. And it's kind of surprising considering we haven't actually had the Umbral Glaive come out from Viper. But clearly doing a good job of setting up that initial vision. And now Clid's going to move and try and set it up with Hung. And one of the nice things about Yuumi is the fact that when you attach to the Wukong, you essentially get the Wukong safety net. You get the Wukong's ability to dive away and get away from tricky situations, which, you know, typically squishy supports like, well, the Senna here, who is the one warding for EDG, don't have that same ability to have a safety net.
Yeah, quite often can be a little more difficult. Interestingly as well, Viper not going for that Umbral Glaive. Early on, heading straight towards that Eclipse with a little bit of healing reduction mixed in there as well. Certainly a different build. I think we've seen every Senna today go for the Umbral Glaive first, so deciding to change up the way that he's playing.
This is Viper. Viper's a carry. He wants to do damage. He doesn't care about wards.
Well, you say that. He built Umbral Glaive in game 1 of the series.
He doesn't care about wards anymore.
He once cared about wards. Never again. Although they did win that game. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe he goes Umbral Glaive second. Maybe he cares about wards. We'll
Maybe
have
he
to
cares
find
a bit,
out.
but less. He cares somewhat to an extent.
It's one of, you can take or leave wards, you know. You can take it or leave it.
Well, I do think one thing to be said is like he's a massive portion of the AD damage this game. Jiejie's not really going to do that much damage. They have AP mid and top, so Viper needs to be kind of pumping out the DPS when it comes to these fights, especially when you have champions like Fiora who can build the Mortal Mortius. Lwx can build it as well. Like, you already got Wukong building a Hex Drinker. It could make it very difficult to take down targets if Viper isn't able to shred whoever he sees.
Yep, that's definitely true. And
Plus, forget the wards, man. Wards are for,
wards are for idiots. He's an AD carry, not a support. Come on now. 2-0-2 though so far on Viper. Definitely a good position to be sat on. Only 18 minutes into the game when you're playing a champion like Senna. Certainly do well from the scaling side of things. And like we've talked about, limited income from Senna because you don't go for the farm. So having early kills often can feel even more beneficial than it usually would on most champions. So nice stuff here from EDG. Oh, that's a charm coming out from Scout. That's the follow-up from the rest of the team. Not even Yuumi can save you now, but Jiejie went a little too deep on this one. And xiaolaohu wants to punish. Meiko saving Scout's life. Has he sacrificed himself, though? Another charm comes on in and Viper there with the damage, but they can't quite follow up on the kill here. The tower went down, and here comes Flandre. Time to turn the tide, says Flandre, but won't be able to close the gap in the end.
Yeah, ultimately, there's so many dashes, so much disengage from this FPX lineup. And Flandre had no TP, so he's always going to be later to join. Scout makes a really aggressive play, and it works to get Lwx, but they end up committing so heavily, they have no way of getting out. Jiejie just basically said, I am committing with my full body. And that's kind of the difference between a champion like Nautilus and a champion like Vi. Nautilus can just press R and keep a safe distance. Vi kind of has to put a life on the line. And we're going to see that, so it's a great charm flash coming out from Scout. Even though the arcane shift is buffered, he still gets CC'd and it's layered. But then Jiejie says, I am... just lets Jesus take the wheel and goes for it. Yeah.
My life for EDG. It does end up sacrificing himself, but ultimately they got the kill. And xiaolaohu just about getting away with that one. It was about as close as they come. But ultimately, he survived, and that's all that matters. Flandre continuing to scale up here, but not able to have that much impact on the game just yet. Like you said, is a little bit late to the play, and it will mean that yet to find any advantages off in that side lane. A minor CS lead, 3 assists, but can't take over yet.
Here's a bit of an issue, right? So, Fiora, pretty good at split pushing, right? That tends to be something she's pretty strong at, especially later in the game. Yeah. And Flandre doesn't have TP, so that might be problematic later in this game. Scout does, but I would not want to send an Ahri up against a Fiora late game in the side lane. Not if I want to win, at least.
No, doesn't feel like a great situation for them, so we'll have to wait and see. Flandre maybe just needs to try and find a... I mean, look, you've got Vi. It's not like you're lacking engage, so maybe EDG just... okay, xiaolaohu's on the side lane. Just go. Go in, Jiejie. Sacrifice your life again.
You say that, but like it's kind of hard to really pin anyone down in FPX. Like if FPX don't want to be engaged on, they really shouldn't get engaged on. Everyone's got like a million dashes. They should be far enough away. It's kind of on them if they get caught out. Now we do have Dragon spawning in 40 seconds. Would be the third for EDG, and I feel like there are, you know, decent amount of bulkier members. Vladimir in particular will get a lot of value out of that Ocean Soul. I feel Vi as well will be quite tanky as the game goes along. Tahm, Kench too. And up to FPX to see if they can test this one. I did say before, being able to poke members of EDG out can have a lot of value. Their composition really potent at doing so. Ezreal on the 2-item spike is in prime position to start connecting some mystic shots.
Here's the Scout, tries to contest a little bit of vision here. 8 seconds on that Drake. Cleared front and center, has the cat on his shoulder, so the sustain will be there. And Cleared has had some excellent ultimates so far this game as Flandre will get rooted up. Bit of damage coming out from Care. That's actually going to be the ultimate used from Care as well, just to get a bit of harass onto Flandre. I'm not sure if that's worth it or not. Does EDG just group up and start DPSing down the Dragon? But Flandre's on the wrong side of the wall. He can't actually join the fight just yet. It's going to be a smite fight, and it's won by Cleared. True Shot Barrage does big damage across the team of EDG. They're forced away. They can't find a pick, although the chomp comes in onto Cleared. The root is there, but again, no follow-up damage from EDG.
I think ultimately the... Oh, I see Care go for something more. I think ultimately the chunk out onto Flandre worked, right? The poke we were talking about, Flandre wasn't really able to enter the fight anymore, even burnt his ult to try and survive. And so as a result, EDG knew it was going to be 4v5. They just went for the dragon flip. Clid ended up winning, and EDG will find ability to get prio on this mid tower, but won't really get more than that.
We'll take a mid-tier 1 tower for them, tier 2 tower, sorry, for themselves. So at least they get something. It increases their gold lead to 2,000 here. As xiaolaohu tries to get this tower in the bottom side, should be able to do so. Scout moving on over, but I don't think he'll get there in time to stop the Fiora, who is so quick at finishing these objectives off. So xiaolaohu managed to get that one. Trading tower for tower here. Still an advantage for EDG getting that tier 2, but ultimately, still, with the Drake going the way of FPX, I'd say they won the passage of play.
Oh, for sure. I mean, denying the third dragon from EDG makes such a difference. And now, both teams, even in dragons, the earliest we'll see Soul is like 31, 32 minutes. So quite out of the way. And to be fair, I feel like both teams have a lot of scaling elements in this game. So I don't think, I think both teams are happy for this to be a slow-paced one. Whereas game 1 and game 2 is like very explosive, very fast-paced. This one, I think it does come down to how the execution comes out, and particularly EDG, whether they're able to find these critical engages when it comes to those fights.
We'll see if they can find those engages. Like you say, it's really difficult to find a good target. It's really hard to lock someone down, and especially if xiaolaohu is kind of frontlining for the side of FPX. Well, you use the big ulti from Jiejie from that buy. Well, you just riposte it. The CC never lands. The stun comes down onto the team of EDG. It's a difficult situation to deal with at that situation.
They've been sending Scout to answer Fiora, which, we said with the TP, that's probably going to be the logical response. I feel like xiaolaohu can just go more next item, and you have so much MR. You have the Merc Treads, possibly Tenacity and Runes. I'm not sure if that'll be the case or not, but either way, like a lot of CC reduction for this Fiora. And both of the people they'll send in the side lane are AP, so mobile multis will be fantastic. And I think at that point, that's where you start to get really quite scared for whoever EDG sends to hold the side lane. Not sure it'll necessarily come into a dive because both of them are hard to pin down, but if it gets to the point where Fiora can kind of just brush off your damage and heal off the wave, that is where things become painful.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it feels like things are gradually becoming painful for EDG. Like this side lane threat could become an issue, and so far that's not been the case, but it's very possible later on. And we saw that xiaolaohu more than happy to find towers. We saw that in game number 2 of the series, which feels like a very long time ago now. As we hit 25 minutes in this game with just 10 kills on the board. Big true shot barrage. Look at the damage onto Viper. Feels like Lwx hit like a truck now.
First strike, yeah. First strike, that's it. Long day. First strike from Lwx.
First strike barrage.
Gets a bunch of gold in from landing that, obviously contributing. And now looking for an engage.
Final chapter comes through, but Meiko with the Devour. Ult for all out of the supports. Not much going to cover that.
But they should be able to get this mid-tier 1, maybe. At least get it close. But be cautious about if the Vi does connect. You ain't getting out of that one. They are putting a lot of pressure onto this mid lane tier 1. Meanwhile, xiaolaohu pushing in the bot lane.
Yeah, it's going to be the root coming on through. Dawning Shadow across the team. EDG want the fight for themselves. Clid trying to play back line as Scout jumps in onto Lwx. The damage isn't quite there to finish it off. Flandre in his pool finishes it with the Hemo Plague. And now charging forward. Scout wants more. The charm actually lands onto Clid and a root to follow up as well. The final embrace, but it's not quite enough to finish a kill. They're onto the clone instead. But Drake up in 40 seconds, and EDG, I think they've bought themselves that opportunity.
Yeah, Lwx does spawn in time and has TP, but doesn't really have much extra. So EDG should get control of the area. They found the engage, and ultimately it was a really nice TP from Scout. This is the issue, right? You overcommit onto this mid-tier 1, you overextended, and as much as Ezreal doesn't die to the initial engage, with an Ahri behind you, you aren't able to get away. Should be EDG picking up this dragon. We'll get the replay. So initial engage comes out from, I think, yeah, it's the Vi. So flash ult to shorten the time in which Lwx can react. He has to use the arcane shift, flash away from the Tahm Kench, and then you're left right next to the Ahri and the Vladimir. Hung even disconnects. He knows that he's dead to the Vladimir ult, and at this point FPX just have to disengage. Now again, Lwx is respawned. Han has made it here in time. Oh, Flandre chunked out.
Trade between Flandre and Care, but luckily Flandre has a Senna and is Vladimir, so he's back to full health. He's fine on this one as Jiejie takes a chunk as well. This Drake is everything. Whoever gets it gets onto Soul Point. As now the fight for vision continues. EDG staying grouped up using that sustain. xiaolaohu not opting to split push here, opting to be with the team, wants to be that team fight. Fiora and Flandre's the one to get the Drake of all players. Manages to get it with the transfusion, I assume, as Care takes a big chunk here. Flandre forced into his pool. xiaolaohu wants to take the 1v1, but what is that healing onto Flandre? That is insane. Jiejie forced back, eaten up by Meiko, kept alive as FPX are winning the fight. They're pushing EDG back. The health bars bleeding down, but the sustain is nuts. Flandre finally falls, and it's 1 for FPX.
Managed to find the kill. This could mean they could go towards the Baron. A lot of sustain for the Yuumi can keep everyone topped up, and they force EDG to contest. Flandre's down for a while, and no TP means he won't be able to get it clear near anytime soon. Care is looking for Jiejie.
Yeah, Jiejie over the wall and just gets bopped. Hung the one to finish the kill off there as Care, with the big upfront damage, is able to set things up. Scout pushes away from the mid lane, but there's no way they can try for anything more. And FPX, it looks like they will just get away with this one. Baron in hand, 7-6 on the scoreline. Aux, dare I say it, we may have a blue side win. Is it possible?
It might just be FPX are trying to make it happen. They already instantly use that Baron to take that top lane tower. You could see EDG were thinking of going for the answer, the collapse around, but didn't end up doing so. And we'll get the replay. You know, the dragon ends up coming down to just a flip, and it's somehow Vladimir who ends up securing it. The empowered Q does the final damage. But you can see in this fight, it's not really an ideal circumstance for Vladimir. He ults 2 people, and sure, he gets a massive heal here, but the commit isn't really there. Jiejie goes in, but there's no follow-up because Flandre was split to the side. And then EDG are like, right, we've used most of our tools. We kind of just need to get out on this one. And it allows FPX to keep chasing down the mobility they have coming in really clutch to connect there.
Viper not really having that much impact. Ouch.
Well, I think the problem is, right, is with fasting Senna, you're going to be down in items, you're going to be down in levels. Level 12 when you have like xiaolaohu level 16, Lwx level 14, and I know they're ahead with the Baron, but even so, he was always down in levels. And the problem is he's the only AD threat who's really doing damage, right? Jiejie isn't really doing much AD damage in the fights. So look at the itemization from FPX. We have 3 Moors, 2 Merc Treads, and a Banshees coming out. Flandre and Scout are just neutered at this point, and Viper's not finding a position to really do damage here.
Certainly not. xiaolaohu can now use this Baron buff we talked about in the previous game. How xiaolaohu, if he'd had that Baron, it would have been lights out for EDG. Well, now that very nightmare is coming to be a reality for EDG. As his bot lane tower sieged away, I swear there is no cooldown on Lwx's ult at this point. He's just blasting true shot barrages out every couple of seconds. The cannons will finish the bot lane tower. There goes one inhib tower for the side of FPX. Lwx went for a reset, but he has TP. He can rejoin the team anyway. Care now the target. The follow-up is there. They find a pick. EDG onto the map finally, but that final chapter is massive for the disengage.
They find the pick, that lockdown comes in, Care overstepping a little bit, and that allows them to play defensive around their base, but still not able to get much more than that 1 kill. Care will be up more than enough time for that dragon. They did, however, burn the flash from xiaolaohu, so that is one positive. Not able to have that tool in team fights. And next dragon will be Ocean Soul if EDG can secure it. That could be a win con.
Yeah.
Would make it a lot harder to deal with their team if they're able to secure it. But I still feel like the chances of the fight are rough. They're down in gold. All that magic resist is massive. And once again, Viper's level 12, right? Lwx is level 15.
Yeah. It's a tough one between the 2 AD carries here.
And especially
Lwx doing a lot more damage.
You gotta factor in one of the big thing with the buffs they did for durability. They gave 70 flat HP, and then they gave scaling HP, armor, and magic resist. So it's even more painful being down on levels than it was before the durability patch. So Viper seriously lacking, and he has to do so much damage for this lineup.
Yeah, he really does. He needs to be the carry, but as you say, struggling to really have that level of power. Well, we'll see if that can change as Lwx moving down to this bottom side alongside Care, trying to find priority and control as Clid gets deep vision. No vision here for EDG, aside from that one ward that conveniently everyone from FPX is currently stood on. So EDG with full information. Oh, that's convenient for them. As they're trying to get something done in the mid lane, getting the souls for Viper, getting a bit of healing as the True Shot barrages are a bit of a pain for the side of EDG, but now they can move into this river. Drake up in 5 seconds, and this could be everything if they can find the pick for themselves. Big damage coming down. Lwx turns golden. Jiejie on the backside of the fight. He goes down. It's 1-for-1, but the jungler falling for EDG is crucial. Scout has to be the carry. Flandre in the backline trying to do what he can, but Viper's still untouched for the time being. Flandre goes into his pool and survives. Clid forced away as Scout looks for a little bit more. The riposte is there. Care 1 HP as xiaolaohu in the middle of everyone, buying time, buying space, but falls in the end. And EDG, they finally win a fight.
And I do not care about the scoreline. Jiejie 1-6 absolutely carried that fight. Finds the CC on an Lwx. Flash still available, but it does not matter. The charm follow-up is there, and as much as he survived a while for the stopwatch, the momentum was found for EDG. Could start getting those resets in for Scout, and I think the main thing is watch Viper in this fight. Able to just free hit throughout because FPX from the back foot, so finds that big combo. Scout follows up, and yes, the stopwatch buys time, but Viper repositions up here and just is free hitting this whole fight. You can see xiaolaohu comes in, doesn't want to go towards Viper because he knows the ult is still there for the Tahm Kench, and so Viper just constantly hitting this whole time. We get to see the damage coming out from him, and it makes so much difference.
Man, even in the replay, I'm struggling to see what's happening in this fight because the amount of stopwatches and the amount of clones coming out from FPX with the Wukong and the LeBlanc, like, I don't know how EDG are able to function in these team fights, but it is damn impressive to witness. They are currently down in gold, but with that Ocean Soul, it finally feels like they might have a foothold in this game. It finally feels like they might have an advantage to work with. As Baron up in 12 seconds time, and you can see complete control of this top side in favor of EDG.
Something to mention, Flandre didn't have his Rabadons for that fight, has now completed it, so he is very powerful. Void Staff as well means he will be doing a pretty ridiculous amount of damage, and they're confident just to start the Baron.
I don't think there's any way that Clid can get here in time. This should just be taken before the contest from FPX. Scout moving over as Care in the brush, but EDG can burst it. Oh my days, that was so close. Jiejie managing to get the smite. Now Care trying to stop the recalls. xiaolaohu was in the base, but he's backed away. He's not committed. Now Clid finding knockups across the team. Final chapter is there, but Clid doesn't have the HP. Hung is without a partner. He's taken out in the pit, and Clid is alone in the world. The monkey falls outside of the jungle, and now Scout chasing for more. A great charm onto xiaolaohu. And everything had been going so well for FPX, but when it matters the most, they apple crumble.
This is so painful for FPX. It felt like they had the momentum, felt like they were able to find this game. xiaolaohu, though, not having the impact he had in that previous Fiora game, not able to find the presence in the side lane, and EDG are just operating on another level. Lwx Ezreal should feel untouched in this game, but he keeps getting shut down. I want to give credit to Jiejie on the Vi, constantly finding him in all these fights, but now EDG in the position of control. They're 2,000 gold up, they have the soul, and they have this Baron. You can see Meiko actually waits, because his recall wasn't actually stopped, but he waited for Viper to make sure he could go back. In the end, he couldn't, but he's there to save him. Look at the size of that shield, by the way. How disgusting it is. No way you're killing them through that. And we start to find the momentum. Scout again with these fantastic charms.
Tahm Kench is an incredibly strong champion, especially when you let him get to this point in the game, and especially with an Ocean Soul on side, a Senna, the Vladimir. The amount of sustain EDG have in these fights is absurd. It's like, I feel like we're watching TFT team fights here, with like the amount of shields and healing coming on through. It's like enchanters versus enchanters at this point. Innovators galore.
Such a big problem was we said FPX wanted to land that poke before fights, right? The Ezreal and LeBlanc could chunk people out. Ocean Soul just makes that so difficult. You have the Senna sustain as well. Vladimir has built in sustain. Ahri has built in sustain. Tahm has built in sustain. Like the poke just isn't sticking anymore. And it's EDG who have the engaged tools to find the windows.
And the first strike really not going to be valuable in team fights either. Like when you've got the lethal tempo or the press the attack or the conqueror, you get a lot more value out of that for Ezreal in the team fights. But first strike not really going to work out in that regard. It's going to be a mid inhib taken here by EDG as they just stop brutalizing now.
Oh my lord, that's a lot of damage.
Yeah,
He's
it
got
doesn't feel like
Banshees.
there's anything that FPX can do now. Oh, xiaolaohu, I don't think you can stay here, buddy. Although, it feels like EDG are afraid to go for the dive.
Yeah, I think don't want to risk it at this point. You have the Baron, you have a wave coming. You've taken the top 2 inhibitors. They are just going to tank it up though with all that sustain to finish it off. But with the wave coming in, they should be looking to continue this push. Poke lands, but again, this is a Vladimir. He will heal up very quickly, use the wave, 400 health, and you get the health from the Ocean Soul coming through, and he's back at full HP.
Yeah. Yep, that ultimate not able to achieve all of too much. Viper there to keep healing him as well. And now this will be the 3rd inhib tower that they go for while Scout pressures in the mid lane to push those supers home. Feels like Flandre in a little bit of trouble here. Viper low on HP as well. Maybe a chance for FPX. They look for the all-in because the Shroud comes through from Viper to keep his teammates safe. And that Ocean Soul is paying dividends in these long, drawn-out fights. Another true shot barrage, but again, the damage just won't stick.
And EDG are unrelenting at this point. Scout looking for the flank, but so is Clid.
The flank from Clid. Is it going to be in time? A Scout onto the back line here. Lwx force. Clid trying to trade, but he just doesn't have the damage. And once again, the Ocean Soul. These EDG players are invincible. They just won't die. There's nothing FPX can do as they are cut down one by one. And the world champions EDG, they make it messy. It's 3 games rather than 2, but they get the win on the board. They are 1-0 in the LPL Summer Split.
FPX definitely giving them a challenge, not making it easy, and that final game felt like such a slugfest, but in the end, EDG managed to clutch it out, managed to find the windows, and I want to give huge credit to Jiejie and Scout. I feel like so many fights, Jiejie would engage on LWX, and Scout would always be there to follow up on the charm. That final one where you see